the housekeeping, the very familiar housekeeping for those of you who have been with us since this morning. Please use the chat for discussions and the Q&A function for questions. So we've got a chat and a Q&A running. If you can't access the Q&A, please do put your question into the chat, but just mark it as a question. If there's time at the end of each presentation, then we'll ask the questions. Otherwise, our sponsors today will happily answer those questions for you afterwards. The whole of the session is being recorded. If you need to turn on captions, go up to the top, click the three dots, go to settings, then accessibility, and then toggle to always show captions in my meetings, and you'll be able to have captions. We ask all delegates to abide by the code of conduct, which can be accessed via the delegate brochure and the ALN website. We really want ALN to be enjoyable for anyone and everyone. So if you see anything inappropriate, please do drop us an email. So now I'm going to hand over to Adam Robinson and Robin Gibson from the University of Derby and Kortext, who are going to talk to us first this afternoon. Over to you two.
Thank you, Zelda, and hi everyone. Nice to be back here again. I think this is the third year running now for the ALN conference. So just what we wanted to go through, just picking up the theme of the conference in terms of those revolutionary thoughts for disrupting the status quo in libraries. Kortext, we love disrupting the status quo in libraries, as some of you will be aware. So what I really just want to go through is a presentation in two parts. So firstly, just to look at the focus, firstly, wrapped around the student experience and how that fits in with the reading list. We're going to start with Adam just going through the first full year of the Kortext e-textbook experience at the University of Derby. We're now over 20 universities on what we call Kortext Complete, so that one-to-one experience. So Adam's experience at Derby will be really useful just to go through and see how that's evolved from the first period where it was a test. And then secondly, I'm just going to take on from there and just looking at some of the technology that we're building here at Kortext around improving the teaching and learning experience, acknowledging that content discovery is based around that reading list. So how can we improve that student experience from the reading list? So I just click on for Adam and fire away.
Okay, good stuff. Thank you, Robin. Hello, everyone. Yes, so hello, and I'm just going to briefly give you an overview of the e-textbook scheme at Derby over the last sort of 18 months, really. As Robin said, we've run a full scheme over the last 12 months, but initially we ran a pilot for 6 months. But just give you a little bit of context, a little bit of background about Derby, first of all. In our first year, we have approximately 5,500 students. We are a reading list driven acquisition institution, and we also have an e-first policy. Now, the basis for us adopting an e-textbook scheme was really in response to two key factors. The first one is that we're responding directly to student feedback that we garnered from internal surveys, the NSS and things like that, where we realized we just didn't have enough digital provision of some of those key textbooks that students really needed. The second issue for us was really this endeavour to provide an equitable experience for our users, to make sure that all students, regardless of their background or economic circumstances, had the same opportunities. So obviously, when it comes to being a cost-saving tool, as we know, certain textbooks can cost anywhere between £50 and £150 per title. This is money we wanted to put back into the pockets of students. This has only been emphasised even more in recent months by the cost of living crisis. Of course, we also want to take advantage of the accessibility tools and features that are native to the platform to make sure that everyone, regardless of their learning style, had the same opportunities. But also because of this one-to-one provision model, every student gets access to their own personal copy of their key reading. So that means there's no turnaways, there's no denials, there's no queues. Everyone can access their key reading as and when they want to, according to when suits their lifestyle. So to give you a sense of the overview of our scheme, sort of what the scope of it involves, we are on the complete model. We're entitled to 2 titles for every first year module. That translates to, over the last 12 months, to about 513 unique titles across 564 modules. Now, one of the key aspects for us is that we wanted to make sure that we were maximising discoverability so that our students could find these titles where they needed them and to just generate that awareness as much as possible. So, of course, we had these links in our VLE, we had it in our reading lists, and we also had it in our catalogue as well, because we had that widening access so that second and third year students, or even postgraduate postgraduate students could also access these titles if they needed to. We were keen to make sure that we engaged teaching staff early, and we had probably about a third of all teaching staff actually engage with us, which was pretty good, but I think there's still a little bit of work that we need to do there to make sure we increase those numbers. Now, we also launched at the end of the pilot the Student Ambassador Scheme. So this was launched at the end of the pilot and sort of ran from the beginning of the full 12-month scheme in September. This scheme was really, really beneficial. I think it's actually had a really dramatically positive effect on the scheme as a whole. At the end of the day, the reason we did this is because those students obviously have a much greater reach than a library ever will, but also they'll have that voice of authenticity that you just can't replicate that if you're a member of staff. Now, we had a lot of sustained promotional material in the pilot session. So over those 6 months, we had a lot of various bookmarks, we had lots of posters, we ran lots of different drop-in sessions, we went out to a lot of classes to really engage and create awareness amongst our student body and with our academics. But when we launched the full 12-month scheme in September, we had to pull back an awful lot on that due to various different priorities that we had in the library. We just didn't have the time to be able to dedicate to a full promotional campaign. But that's where the student ambassadors came in. And what's been very, very interesting is how the usage and the engagement has compared across those two sort of periods. And if we have a look at some of those stats, hopefully you can see the graph on the screen at the moment. And there are a number of different lines on this line graph. The purple line at the top of the screen is the cumulative use over the last 12 months. So that shows consistently, obviously, it's stepped up throughout the year. It's reached some pretty high numbers, as you can see, which you would hope to expect across 12 months. This contrasts with the black line towards the bottom of the screen. This was for the 6-month pilot. So in and of itself, that's not too dramatic. It's not too shocking because obviously comparing a 6-month trial with a 12 months usage. What is really interesting, though, are the pink and the green lines at the bottom of the graph, because this is tracking active engagement from our users. So if we look at the green line, that is tracking it across at the 6-month pilot. And what we can see is that it rises and then stays pretty consistent. So that's nice to see. But what's even more gratifying is looking at that purple line where we can see the same thing has happened again across the whole of the 12 months and stayed pretty steady and consistent across that 12-month period without promotion, which I think is really encouraging. To me, this demonstrates that actually what we're seeing is that students are finding these titles, engaging with them, and then going back to them again and again, which is really key to demonstrating that this has been good value and a wise investment. So if we look then to the outcomes of both the 6 months and the 12 months schemes so far, I think we can see that, yes, we've had really consistent usage engagement, which is really encouraging, which is very nice. But we've also had a lot of positive qualitative feedback as well. This has been from internal surveys, focus groups, but also a little bit in the NSS feedback as well, which is really nice to see. We've had some quite vocal support asking to push the scheme into 2nd and 3rd years as well. So there's definitely a contingent of users who really, really value this. What's been really key for me, though, is being able to demonstrate the return on investment. At the end of the day, the scheme, it's not cheap. As we know, e-textbooks are quite expensive. So it's very important that if we're investing this money, we see a good return on investment. And I'm pleased to say that we've actually seen that we have a very low cost per use comparatively, which is really good to see. So for every time a student uses it, we're actually seeing that value increase as the cost comes down for each use, which is fantastic. What's particularly interesting as well is that we actually saw the CPU drop by 22% across the 12 months versus the 6-month pilot. So again, what we're seeing is greater value as more students engage, which is absolutely fantastic, and it brings the overall cost down. So this is demonstrating good return on investment. It's demonstrating that there's a clear usage and engagement with these titles and hopefully wise expenditure. What's also interesting, though, is if we look at that CPU, we can see that it's actually outperformed similar or comparable schemes that we operate in the library, such as our DDAs and any of those individual monograph purchases that we bought for reading lists. If we compare like to like, it actually works out much more sustainable, much more affordable through the e-textbook scheme than it did with these individual or DDA purchases. And then I think most interestingly and probably most impactful on this list is the NSS score. Now, I don't have the score for this year yet, but looking back to last year in 2022, we actually saw our NSS score for the library question increase by 8%. So that rose to about 85%, which is slightly above the sector average. So this was quite significant for the library. Now, I can't say that eTextbook Scheme takes full credit for that, but I do think it plays a very significant part in it. And the reason I say that is because initially we were responding to previous NSS comments, of course, and we're addressing that need, but also there were some free text comments as well that highlighted the textbook scheme as being of value to students. So I do think a large part of that increase comes from this scheme. Yeah, and so with that being said, I'll hand over to Robin.
That's excellent, Adam. Thanks very much. Now, obviously, the Derby scheme is centred through the reading list, and we obviously recognise that reading lists are an extremely powerful tool for libraries to organise and manage the acquisition of learning materials for the institution. And particularly, and I know speaking to a lot of librarians, the reading list embedded in the VLE can provide a schedule of essential reading links for adopted materials per module. So a very important part of the library infrastructure. But a couple of downsides of the reading list in terms of that student experience is you actually have multiple clicks to content. If you have a reading list, there can be up to 8-9 clicks to get through to a book. And the other major point is that obviously the entire collection is potentially within that reading list. So students have got hundreds of platforms and user interfaces to navigate. So they actually never get used to one particular platform and all of the functionality and elements that are in that platform. So is there anything that we can look at from a Kortext perspective to actually address that? So first of all, we asked the students, a little bit like Adam mentioned in terms of the NSS feedback. So HEPI, in conjunction with UCAS, did a survey at the back end of last year asking students what did they want. And overwhelming majority, 87%, so they want one consistent reading platform so they can get used to it, just as they are on their mobile phones, just as they are on Netflix, etc. They want that one consistent reading platform, not the up to 400 that JISC actually quote that students face. They want a streamlined and intuitive navigation to content, so 8-9 clicks is a little bit out of kilter with that particular view. They want a variety of content and format. And the other thing, picking up on what Adam was saying before, they do not want waiting lists. The student does not understand, and we all know why, but why there'd be a waiting list for digital content. 95% of students say they don't want waiting lists. So just a few questions in terms of a challenge. So what if the student reading list experience was more intuitive and tailored to them, i.e. they had a personalised reading list view? What if that student experience in terms of reading and viewing and studying content was consistent for all lecture materials, journal articles, adopted e-textbooks and other learning contents on the list? That students had a more personalised and collaborative experience in relation to their learning objectives, that they have more content and context around the assignment, that the academic lecture preparation was made easier by the reading and selection and acquisition process, and actually there was insight and activity by the individual versus their cohort to help guide that student success. So just some things we're working on, which would be great if we can have a discussion with you later in the conference on. So, first of all, we're working on an AI-powered experience layer plugged into the VLE for content discovered through the reading list. And this will truly unify the student digital learning experience. We're looking at improved support for academic assignment workflows, deep linking content and academic generated question banks, all again helping students consolidate their learning knowledge. For the library, we're looking at enhancing that library workflow, upgrading the acquisitions portal, improving search, flagging book availability, introducing reserve lists, as well as in developing interoperability with our own leading reading list management system, which is Keylinks, but also importantly, the other reading list management systems in the market, again, to enhance your efficiency and effectiveness. And ultimately, what we're working towards is delivering a seamless teaching and learning experience centered on the content and married with predictive learning analytics to support better student outcomes. So I'm aware I've only got a couple of minutes left, so I'll just flick through a video that we had on AI, and I won't play that. It's playing automatically, but I will also make the point that Kortext isn't just for one-to-one provision. Yes, we're the highest ranked scoring supplier on Lot5 for SUPC, and we're first ranked on APUC for e-textbook and e-book provision, but we are also ranked on Lot4 on SUPC in terms of library supply and ranked on Lot1 library supply for APUC as well. So we also have very strong library models alongside the one-to-one provision that the likes of Derby does adopt. So just to discover more, that's a really sort of top line highlight of what we're working towards, and you'll see from your partnership managers that technology is coming to the fore very, very soon. But any more about Derby, just email Adam there on Adam's email. Any more from Kortext, just email me. We'll be at the conference tomorrow. We've also got our summer webinar on the 6th of July as well, with a really strong panel to discuss all things library and the future library. And we have a prize as well, as per last year, but it's the 10th anniversary of Kortext, so we've had 10th anniversary cupcakes as Academic Libraries North, one of the prizes for the conference this week. So that's all I've got to say at the moment. If there are any questions in the chat or questions in the Q&A or comments, then please fire away.
Fantastic. Thank you, Robin. Thank you, Adam, for that. We've got one question in the chat, which is, have you had any feedback from students about the accessibility features in Kortext? For example, the read aloud function.
Yes, we have. It's a good question. Yeah, we've had some really positive feedback, very vocal feedback about how fantastic the various accessibility features are. In particular, one of the things that they really appreciate is being able to change the background color. That's something that's been highlighted several times to me personally, and being able to change the font, the shape and size and the text has been very, very key. So yes, it's been very well received.
Fantastic. Thanks, Adam. Let me just check if there's anything else. Okay, one last question. You've got to be quick with this one, okay? Which is, Adam, can I ask what percentage of your book budget goes on Kortext Complete?
That's a good question. As a percentage, it's difficult to say. Tell you what, if you drop me an email, I'll come back to you on that one, and we'll pick it up over email. Okay,
fantastic. So Evelyn, who posted that, if you want to drop Adam a line, that would be great. Okay, thank you to Kortext, one of our silver sponsors, and now we're going to move on to our next silver sponsor, We Buy Books. So Brad, if you'd like to share your presentation.
Yes, sure.
Lovely. I'll pass over to you, Brad.
I'm hoping everybody can see that. If somebody can potentially give me a thumbs up.
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you.
Good. Welcome everybody. My name's Brad Hacking, and I'm one of the senior managers here at We Buy Books. Can I first of all start by thanking the organisers at LAN for allowing us the opportunity to present to you today and to be a sponsor as well. This is our first year sponsoring this event. I've managed to watch quite a number of the very informative presentations, and it's clear that a lot of the academic libraries are heading towards e-learning, but my presentation is going to be a bit different because I'm going to talk about printed material and books. So we buy books. We're one of the largest buyers of unwanted library stock, charity shop book disposals, and unwanted books from the general public in the UK. Over the last 15 years, we've grown now to collect from, we have well over 800 charity shops, well over 1,000 public sector libraries, and we have over 600,000 customers from the general public using our various book buying processes. This means that we collect tens of thousands of books per day, processing them in our facilities in Croydon and Rawtenstall in Lancashire. We currently employ over 170 local staff and have a fleet of, gosh, I think it's 14 or 15 vehicles running across the UK. So before I talk about a bit about how we work, let's talk about the books. Well, in terms of linking to the theme of, I suppose, revolutionary thoughts for this conference, I'm going to be maybe somewhat blunt. We believe that if books are not being read regularly in a library, then there has to be a clear path of how those books can be removed. Space on your library shelves and in public sector libraries as well is what we class as prime real estate And if a book is not paying its rent, to use a sort of tentative analogy, and paying its rent by regular withdrawals, then it may have to go. This is against, I suppose, yours and our scruples, but making a space for a book that is read regularly can surely give us some moral reassurance. Also taking I suppose, a rather disruptive view, libraries need to be pragmatic about how that process of disposal works, rather than purely idealistic. We agree that all avenues should be explored before a book is withdrawn for the shelves for disposal. However, we believe, and a lot of our customers believe, that these avenues should not impinge on the fantastic work that you're all doing for the visitors to your libraries. So let me kind of elaborate on that a bit more. If you have a number of books for disposal, whether they are aged, worn, or just haven't been read in forever, then traditionally we look for ways to dispose of that book, whether it's moving it to another position in the library, a book sale in the library, or a donation scheme to your visitors or other institutions. These all have a value, both ethically and morally, of course. But do we consider the value of the time taken to carry out these actions, the resources needed to do this, and the administration time involved? And then when we look at all these actions, then we ultimately have to sort of understand or assess how the success of those actions are measured. And that's kind of where we come in, really. So at We Buy Books, we want to offer an alternative. We want to offer an alternative that satisfies those, I suppose, moral conundrums we face with book disposal, but also offer a financial benefit to your library, a financial benefit that can feed directly back into those activities that you're spearheading in your services, that I've heard a lot of the present people saying today talk about. So how does that work? This is a kind of really simplified view, but you contact us with a collection request. That might be you need a regular collection because you're doing your disposals or your weeding once a month or once every 6 months. It might be an ad hoc because you are, I don't know, renovating a room or moving libraries. So we book a collection to suit you. We collect all your unwanted books and media. We wanted to provide a complete solution for you. We pay for the books, pay for them on the same day, and then the books are processed at our factory in Rottenstall, which is in Rosendale, in Lancashire, about 20 miles north of Manchester. When they get to our site here, they're sorted. We use online technology, automated systems, reading barcodes to ensure that the books are split correctly between those and that are going to go for recycling. And then those that are going to go for what we call a second life or resale or selling online. Ones that cannot be sold are chosen for recycling by our partners. I'm sure you've heard of DS Smith and ISM recycling. So let us try and explain a bit how our business ethics work for you. We are bibliophiles at heart here, but we're bibliophiles working within a commercial sector. We need to ensure that we run a viable business model, which we do, but we also have the added benefit of saving the environment, helping others access books, and we believe we're able to, in a very small way, help contribute to protecting the library sector for the future. So we've all heard of the mantra of reduce, reuse, and recycle. And we at We Buy Books, we adhere rigorously to that. So let's start with reduce. We understand the close relationships that libraries, and especially academic libraries, have with publishers for new books, and we don't want or need to impinge on that with the work that we do. Essentially, we're looking at how we can increase the number of readers of used books in that secondary and tertiary market to lower the impact of new book sales on the environment. And we don't really like to cram figures down people's throats, but I've put a few figures on the slide here that paper usage has grown an awful lot. It uses a lot of water and produces lots of CO2, and quite a large number of the books produced go to landfill. Some of the used books that produce 1/5 of the carbon emissions of a new book, and with the work that our customers do and our libraries and our charities, we manage to save, it's actually probably considerably more than 30 acres, but we can save a 30+ acre forest each year. I mean, all these sort of figures, basically, we just want to ensure that the value of used books, we don't think they can be underestimated. So then that leads us into the second part, which is reuse. Our business model works simply by us taking your unwanted books, looking for the books that still have a value, and then marketing those books on online markets. These online markets are Amazon, eBay, Alibris, Books and others. It's certainly not an easy task. Books can take an awful long time to sell. Also, for us as a business to reach the economies of scale for viability, the numbers need to be large. So currently we have just over 1.7 million books in stock, and we're looking to grow that as well. So the result of that is, it means that thousands of books a week are given this second life or are resold. And they're given this second life by us putting them in the hands of new users and new readers, and means then the book at least, or the textbook, can be enjoyed all over again. It's a simple process for you as a library, where you're paid per book when we collect them. There's no waiting for books to sell. There's no convoluted admin processes. You get paid for the books that we take, and those books are then given the chance to be used again by others, or if not, they go for recycling. So we move to recycling. So what happens when they can't be sold? Well, a large proportion of the books that we collect from across the UK, they've fulfilled their job and have very little or no value or desirability on that second-hand market. These books then become our responsibility to recycle, and we take that responsibility very seriously. Through strategic partnerships with trusted recycling businesses and suppliers, like I said, DS Smith is our main one at the moment. We prioritise sustainable recycling practices and methods. We also continuously work to optimise our own logistics and transportation systems to minimise our carbon footprint and environmental impact. This dedication, I suppose you can call it, to sustainability, drives us to create a greener future for all of us. Yeah, is it a cliche? Of course it is, but we really believe it here. Our minimum standard for all the books that we collect is to ensure that all the waste is collected, segregated and disposed of safely and in accordance with statutory regulations and applicable environmental laws wherever we're operating. And what does that mean? Well, simply it means that no books that we collect are sent to landfill, not one. And all the waste items that we collect are recycled responsibly. It's something that we are really proud of. And that's backed up by the fact that we have our trust accreditation. So we're really proud that we managed to get, it's sort of a bit of a coveted award, I suppose, or accreditation last year. And it means then, and basically what it is, it's a coalition that's dedicated to boost standards within the whole recycling sector. It was brought about by the CRA, so the Charity Retail Association. It has the backing of over 2,500 charities. And basically it's given through a fully audited process. And it consists of it was a comprehensive series of tests within, as you can see on the slide, 5 areas. Those 5 areas being health and safety, so making sure that we are safe in our building here. We take appropriate action to protect all the staff. Number 2, it's that we have sound business practices, so we are fully compliant with the law. We are transparent in the way that we work with our customers, our suppliers, and our staff as well. We ensure working conditions are of a good standard. It all ensures that workers are treated properly in full accordance with their rights. We have no subcontractors here. We have no 0 hours contract. Everyone's employed. We want it to be a good place to work. And for the environment, like I've spoken about, we want to ensure that we're promoting the best sustainability and environmental standards and trying to exceed the minimum at all times. And then transport, so it just makes sure our vehicles are kept in good condition and are safe. So in terms of what are the numbers, we often get asked this question, so I thought I'd put it in the presentation. Of all the books we collect in the libraries, approximately 13% of all the books are given this second life or resold on various online markets, and about 87% go to recycling, and then again 0% go to landfill. When I'd say 0%, it is a very slight number of items within our general waste, because we recycle all of our items in all of our facilities, and there's a very small few items that can't be recycled. And then a bit about sort of what do we collect. So we'll pay for any non-children's book. So in short, anything that can be reasonably described as a book. Some of our competitors make exceptions for encyclopedias or Reader's Digest, all of this sort of stuff, but we'll take those. We want to ensure that we provide a whole solution for our librarians and not leave them with a disposal problem in certain areas. And that means that we'll also collect your audiobooks, music CDs, DVDs. Unfortunately, these can't be paid for, but if you've got that back room that needs clearing, or you want to make some shelves clear for something else, we will take them off your hands. And we want to make the disposal of your unwanted stock a really sort of simple process. We want to do that so you can concentrate more on the important work in your libraries. We do this by giving you dedicated contacts for collections, quick turnarounds, and minimal information needed for these collections. I mean, the minimum is just let us know how many books you have and how many boxes, and we'll do the rest. We can offer bespoke collections, depending on your needs or the quantities and location, or we can offer regular collections that can come weekly or monthly, and just one-off ad hoc collections whenever you need us, and we'll kind of do a bit of everything in between. So that's it really from me. I didn't want to go on too much. I know it's getting to the end of the day, and you've all been fantastic in watching everybody else's presentations. But if you're interested in learning more about how we can help, feel free to email me. My email's on there. We can arrange an in-person or a virtual chat. I'll also be at the in-person event tomorrow, so feel free to grab me. You'll see me with me jacket on, and we can have a chat about where we can help.
Lovely. Thank you, Brad. Thank you very much for that talk. We are right at the end of our time. We've got a couple of questions that I'm just going to quickly put to you, but if you think you might take a little bit longer to answer, maybe you can answer via text later on. One question was partly covered, asking about whether or not you take CDs, but you mentioned that. But do you also take journals or even VHS if they appear?
Yes.
Yes. Short
answer. Depending on the quantities that you have, come and speak to me separately, and we'll be able to work out a solution.
Okay, fantastic. And the final question is, do we have to take payment? Do some of your customers let you take them for free?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd love them for free.
Yeah.
Well, but yeah,
that's an interesting question, isn't it? But it depends on people's perspective on things.
Of course.
Yeah. Okay. So lovely. Thank you to both of our silver sponsors this afternoon, Kortext and We Buy Books. Both have a presence if you're attending tomorrow, our in-person day in Leeds. If you do have any questions for them, do send those questions along via the Teams or via email. I'm going to end this session now so that everybody who wishes to can go along to our panel discussion exploring the potential and risks of AI in academic libraries, which looks to be extremely interesting, and that will be in Parallel Room B and is starting just now. It's starting, so please do go along to that. And thank you again to our silver sponsors. Thank you.